And that's the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. And right now, I think we need to be getting back to our core values. We've heard for months now, and this entire year, we've seen things going on. We've heard things like character, morality, and ethics being thrown about. Compassion, love, all these words being thrown out across America. And I don't think America or the world knows what it's talking about. The only place that you can get values from is this book right here. Because why? It's an absolute. This doesn't change. This doesn't change with a culture, a society, a decade, a century. It don't care what world leader's in charge. This thing stays the same over and over again. So we need to go back to our values. We need to quit getting lost in this world, focusing on a million things. We need to turn away and focus only on God. And that's what we're doing. We're going to be looking at today. How do we focus on, how do we live for Him? How do we get back in tune with Him? When we're looking at these scriptures today, this is the Sermon on the Mount. We've heard about that. Starts with the Beatitudes, and then it starts going into other things. Starts going into 3 chapters, basically. 5, 6, and 7. This is one entire sermon. If you look at it, it starts in verse 3 of chapter 5, and it'll go all the way until the end of chapter 7. That's one sermon. Aren't you glad mine aren't that long? That is one long sermon. But in that, this is one of his first major sermons that he does. And he lays the groundwork of his ministry. Now, it's nothing new. Everything that Jesus talks about in the New Testament is nothing new. That's what aggravates me so much. We have an Old Testament and a New Testament. Well, the new doesn't supersede the old. This is just Older Testament, and this is Newer Testament. Everything that Jesus talks about, it's already been said. He's just kind of explaining it to us because we've gotten stubborn over the years. The religious leaders and the way the society has gone, Jesus is going, no, I got to remind you, it's not just about checking off boxes, it's about living it out. What Jesus expands on in 3 chapters here is that He's the fulfillment of law. He's the fulfillment of that law that everybody's trying to follow and check off. That we're supposed to show evidence of our faith by living it out. We're not just supposed to be checking off boxes. He also tells us that intent is as sinful as the need to even think about things is as bad as doing them. And that's only to show that nobody is without sin. Well, I don't sin. I've never committed murder. Have you thought about killing somebody? It's just as bad. Adultery in the heart, murder in the heart. Marriage between man and woman, sacred and God created. Living in truth, not just acting like a believer, but actually living in faith. How about going the extra mile, showing mercy and compassion? He talks about, remember, going that extra mile, not because we have to, but because we're living out faith. Loving our enemies and showing compassion. Sermon on the Mount teaches us how to pray and worship as God desires, not how we do it, how God desires us to pray and worship Him. About not worrying about anything in this world system, what's going on in this world, our wealth. We don't worry even about tomorrow. We focus on God and God alone. Not judging others, but judging ourselves, looking at ourselves against God's laws. Putting ourselves up against that. How about we keep seeking God at all times? That God is the only way, Christ is the only way, the path of salvation. We do not seek out our own path, we do not decide what's good. We are incapable of saving ourselves. And that we build our faith on truth and the Word of God alone. We don't change it, we accept it, we live it, we do it, and that's what we build our values, our ethics, our morality, our theology, our faith upon. This is 3 chapters worth. This is not new. This is the doctrine of the Bible, but it's just said by Christ. It's said in a way that's finally getting through to some people. They've had it forever. And Jesus in 3 chapters is saying, no. I guess I got to get through you hardheads and knuckleheads some other way. This is our doctrine. It's not a change from the old. Christ takes everything God has previously said and makes it a little bit better to understand for us, a little simpler, because we've gotten stupid. Remember, keep it simple, stupid? We seem to be that final S sometimes. And Christ is taking everything and going, okay, I got to put it in parables. I got to take 10 commandments and shorten them into 2, because you guys just ain't getting it. We try to get into heaven by doing or by acting. Christ preaches living truth. We're to put it all into action. We are trying, we stop trying to appear holy and we start living holy, or as holy as we can this side of heaven. Now, Christ begins all these chapters with the Beatitudes, and the remaining sermon is an expansion and in-depth of what these are. If God's law and His commands, all Jesus tells about salvation, grace, redemption, are our core values, are our core doctrines, everything in this Bible is our core doctrine. What Jesus is going to talk about in these 3 chapters is core doctrine. What we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to live it in faith. Then if you look at the Beatitudes, verses 1 through 12, these are our core values. There's a difference between our core doctrine, that's the theology of it. If you look at the Beatitudes, there are core values. It is how we are to live every day. Now, there's a lot of doctrine that takes some time to get over. Go ahead and read Deuteronomy and see if you can follow all those rules. Go ahead and read even the New Testament, all Jesus says, and you're kind of going, okay, this is a lot to absorb. However, these few verses are the beginning traits, absolutely necessary characteristics that all Christians embrace. Sure, getting down every law is tough, and trying to follow everything is impossible. It truly is. But we can get these very easy, these first few verses here, and we can leave these, let's try that again. We can live these right off the bat. This is not that hard to do. Say you're having problems with the rest of those chapters, these are easy. These start us off and lead us out to seek more information and then live lives centered on Christ. Core values are those characteristic traits that are easily identifiable of an individual and form a foundation in which we live our lives out every day. That's what core values are. Right? We know what those are. They're hammered. Army has their own. Air Force has their own. Like duty, dignity, honor, respect. Ours is 5-star dining and, hotels with cable service. See, that's our core values in the Air Force. Core values are, we are recognized by them. You should be able to recognize somebody by the way they live because that's their core values. And where do we find core values? Through Oprah, through the news, through talk show hosts, through New Age, I don't know what it's, New Age religion, New Age movements? How about something that's steady and rock solid? Right here. Core values right here. So let's go ahead and look at what our core values are. So, chapter 5, verse 1. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. He opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Well, there's a lot of Beatitudes there, isn't there? I believe that's 8. We're going to look at one today. I know you're going, oh boy, how's it going to stretch one? I can do it. Don't challenge me. We're going to look specifically at verse 3 today. And we'll try and take these, like next week I'll do another one, maybe combine a couple, and we'll work through the Beatitudes here over the next couple of weeks. But verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit. I love how Jesus starts. He doesn't say, blessed are the merciful, blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the persecutors. He says, blessed are the poor in spirit. That's the first thing he says about them. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, we're not talking about poor in wealth here. There's a reason why he puts poor in spirit first. It's not about wealth. It's not about poverty. It's not having anything of value. We think that there's a struggle between being rich and having faith, right? We sometimes think that. So it's harder for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich man to get into heaven. Well, this is not what it's talking about. You can be wealthy and be completely faithful to God, and you can be poor, and you can do all sorts of unrighteous things and swap them around. This is not talking about material wealth. This is not talking about financial wealth. Our social or financial standing really has no bearing on our faith. None. Jesus is talking about a different kind of poverty here. Spiritual poverty. Being spiritually bankrupt. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who are spiritually bankrupt. Guess what? We all have zero spiritual capital. None. We are all spiritually bankrupt. Why? We sin. We are sinners. There is not one good thing about us. We have nothing to hang on to. All our righteousness is nothing before Him. We all have bankruptcy in our lives. But blessed are those who recognize it. Jesus says, blessed are those poor in spirit. These are the people who acknowledge they have nothing going spiritually in their lives. We are broke. 100% broke. And what have I said? What do I always say about broke? Broke can't fix broke, right? If you are so broke you don't have 2 pennies to rub together, how do you accumulate any wealth? Those who are those so broke that we know that even the world system can't help us. That the world system is broken. They have gone to the well so much they have not only poisoned it, but they continue to drink out of it and harm themselves. That's what spiritually broke is. Spiritually bankrupt. Spiritually destitute. Having nothing and realizing you have no place to go. They realize the world systems are broke and as bankrupt as much as they are. It's an inflated currency. We go to the world, we're spiritually bankrupt. We go to the world and say, hey, give me, I need something in my life. What does this world give us? What has this world given us in thousands of years that hasn't failed and broken? It's an inflated currency. They just keep printing out morals and ethics. They keep printing out spirituality and faith in the system. And now that currency means nothing. It's so inflated. The world systems have declined. And blessed are those that have seen that. They've declined and they've crashed, and we cannot put our trust into them. You know, it's kind of like the Great Depression. I don't know if we know anybody that came from that era. I've met a few people over my life. When the Great Depression happened, the banks just closed out, didn't they? They crashed. People went to go get money. I'm broke. I need my money on my bank says I have nothing to give you. All of our financial institutions just shattered, imploded. Now some of these people go, I don't trust banks. I know some elderly people right now that will not, they don't like going to a bank. I don't trust them. When we're spiritually broke, when we go through our Great Depression, spiritually, we realize that this world is just like those banks. We've seen them fall and fail and collapse and implode upon themselves. And do we trust them? Do we keep going to them? Do we keep going to that poisoned well with our hands out and say, I need something that makes my life matter? Well, blessed are the ones that don't. Blessed are the ones that are so poor in spirit, and they've recognized that they can't keep going to the same place. We see a world, those of us who are spiritually broke, we see a world as it is, thousands of years and no improvement regardless of promises, regardless of advancements. We've seen this world get worse and worse, and it has not improved. Sin keeps getting just more wilder out there. We were talking on the way here to church. There are some things you're going, I can't believe I'm at that age where I can go, they didn't do that when I was a kid. It's changed since I was a kid. I never thought I'd be saying that. I heard my parents say that, well, back in my day. And I'm going, yeah, whatever. Now I'm going, back in my day, and my kids are going, yeah, whatever. Give me that garbage. But we've seen this world and what it has produced. And what does it really produce? A new leader isn't going to change anything. A new government isn't going to change anything. A new system is not going to change anything. We keep thinking, you can even move out of one country, go to another country. Is it going to change anything? Because mankind has been messing it up for years. So why do we keep asking for help from people who are just as broke as us? Why do we keep going back to that World Bank? And it has no money in it. Nothing. It is crashed and failed. Why do we keep going back to that and saying, can you give us a loan? Why do we keep expecting broke to fix broke? If the well is dry, we have to go somewhere else. Or the person who is at that well is just going to keep ladling out sand to us and say, drink it. Sadly, there are some people that will go to that dried out well and take that sand and drink it and say, Molsa, please. Because they think it's going to help them somehow. Well, where do you go when the systems of this world are so broken, so bankrupt? Now, being spiritually destitute, that soul-crushing poverty, that bankruptcy of the spirit means we have no place to turn, doesn't it? We've all been there financially, right? It's the same thing with our spirit. There's no hope or future in what the world promises. We see the failure of this world. Somehow, despite everything we have tried, we have failed. Somehow, despite everything the world has tried, it has failed. We are at the end of our ropes and looking at a long plummet down a cliff. We've asked for handouts, and all we get is excuses or something to hold us over, just so that we can go another day in poverty. Again, we have nothing, and everything around us has nothing. How can you make a profit? How can you breathe those 2 cents that you have in your pocket? What, by rubbing them as hard as you can? You're going to make more? No. We have lost everything, so what do we do? We are that spiritually destitute. I'm going to read you something from Luke 16. And there was a rich man, he habitually dressed in purple and fine linen, enjoying himself, Luke 16, 19 through 25. Enjoying himself in splendor every day. And a poor man named Lazarus was laid out at his gate, covered with sores and longing to be fed from the scraps which fell from the rich man's table. Not only that, the dogs also were coming and licking his sores. Now it happened that the poor man died and was carried away by the angels to Abraham's arms. And the rich man also died and was buried. And in Hades, the rich man raised his eyes, being in torment, and saw Abraham far away, and Lazarus in his arms. And he cried out and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool off my tongue, for I am in agony in this flame. But Abraham said, Child, remember that during your life you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus bad things. But now he is being comforted here, and you are in agony. Now, I don't want to get into what Abraham's bosom is and Hades. Suffice it to say, this is about salvation, being taken to heaven right now. What is important is what this verse says, a difference in our spiritual wealth, so to speak. What it says about spiritual bankruptcy. We see a rich man and a poor man. The idea around this is where we place our value. In which bank we keep our spiritual currency, so to speak. Here, a rich man enjoyed all the world had. He kept his spiritual currency in the same bank that is folded and closed the stores over and over again. He kept his option open and invested in a system that has no real returns. At a moment's notice, they can call in debts. They can refuse loans. They can go under and leave you penniless. But he played the odds and the value to his life, and he showed it off. He wore wonderful clothing and had the time of his life. He showed off playing the world's game and investing in it. On the opposite side of the ledger, a man in the red, Lazarus, didn't have anything. Had nothing, living off scraps of the table. Had sores. He was physically and spiritually broke. But he did not invest in the world system, and the world system gave him back nothing because he didn't play the game. He didn't invest. Yet look at where each man ends up. Lazarus is taken off into Abraham's bosom. He's being received into salvation. And the old man, the rich man, is crying out, please, I just want a little drop of water on my lips because I'm inflamed and I'm in pain and I'm in agony. He has lost everything and he came up spiritually bankrupt. He was rich and had nothing. Yet Lazarus was physically bankrupt, but he was spiritually wealthy. And he was taken somewhere else. And I want you to take from this the spiritual destitution, the poverty, the absolute bankruptcy that we can have in our spiritual lives is what the rich man is going through. Agony, torment, no respite. That is spiritual bankruptcy. And when we have that right now, we need to recognize that right now. As human beings, we are spiritually bankrupt. We have this. I would rather recognize this now that I am in this torment and agony spiritually. I want to recognize it now instead of waiting till later, right? I don't want to keep pretending I'm something I'm not. I don't want to pretend that I'm rich and wealthy when I'm poor and destitute. I want to recognize it. We are that rich man. That's our ultimate destination. So blessed are those who recognize that and do something about it. The complete absence of anything, including life, soul, escape from eternal torment and agony, the absolute bottom of the pit. Spiritual bankruptcy. We need to recognize that right now. Luke describes what the bottom of the barrel spiritual bankruptcy is all about. It is one that we need to have now rather than later. We need to accept that the fact that no matter what we think about ourselves right now, we have nothing, and when we come to grips with that, we can gain more. Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Now, we are blessed because we recognize the fact, the truth right now, that we are spiritually bankrupt. We're blessed because we have realized we can no longer invest in the world system. We are blessed because we recognize that no one here can help us. And we need to find a source of spiritual income that turns dividends. We are blessed because we acknowledge that neither we or anyone else can fix us. And we must seek out someone greater than ourselves. We throw away our pride and our arrogance. We humble ourselves and cry out for help. We know no one can help us who is in the same place we are at the bottom of the pit. We need someone who stands above it. We have reached the bottom of the rest of the world and kept digging down further, trying to escape. But we realized the folly of this, and now we look up for someone to lift us out. Blessed are those that are that spiritually destitute and have woken up and seen it. We are blessed because we figured something out. We are drawn to someone who can help us, and we listen. Luke 15 talks about the prodigal son. You all know this one, right? Prodigal son story. Young man runs off. His wealth comes back to his father. Happy ending. Well, Luke 15, 11 through 32 talks about the prodigal son. I just want to highlight something for you because this comes back to blessed are the poor in spirit. A man had 2 sons, verse 11. Man had 2 sons. The younger one of them said, Father, give me my share of the estate that is coming to me. And so he divided his wealth between them, and not many days later, the younger son gathered everything together, went out on a journey to a distant country, and there he squandered his estate in wild living. World system, right? Dad, give me my inheritance now. I don't care when you want to give it to me, when you think it's right to give me, when you think I'm responsible for it. I want it now, and I want to go out and live like the world. I want to live it up. He played the game. Went out and lived it. Did as the world did. Matched himself up against the world system. What happened? Squandered it all. Gone. Now he went out and spent everything, and as he did, a severe famine occurred in that country, and he began doing without. The world is broken, see? Why do we depend on the world that is broken, that changes, that is unpredictable, but yet I'm going to throw not just my money into it, but my spirituality, my eternal soul, into a world system that is always in flux? That's not a good investment strategy. We've had Great Depressions. This guy went out and he decided he was going to live it up, and a famine hit. Unpredictable. But we keep doing that. Why trust a world that is unknown, unchanging, unpredictable? Why did he stay home? There was at least a constant, right? So he went and he hired himself out to citizens of that country as a pig farmer. They said then they put him into the fields to feed pigs, and he longed to have his fill of the carob pods that the pigs were eating, and no one was giving him anything. And when he needed something, when he was out of everything, when he was bankrupt, where did he go? Huh? Well, eventually. But he went straight to the world system to get him, right? Oh, hire me, you'll take care of me, you'll take care of me, you'll take care of me. And what happened to him? Feeding pigs. And he's looking at pig slop and going, tasty. Now, I've never lived in that kind of poverty. I've never looked at the remains of some animal and gone, I'd rather eat that. Though I do think dog food, you ever see cans of dog food and the picture in front of it? I'm going, those cuts of beef look better than the stuff I'm buying. I've never eaten. Well, I'm just saying, that actually looks pretty good. It's a nice gravy, you know. I've never been in that situation, so I don't know what that's like. But he is actually starving to death. And he went out to the world and said, give me something. And the world would not help him. Go and feed our pigs, and maybe you can eat some of their stuff. But wait, I thought you helped. I thought the world was this big help, and we are one. The world didn't care. He said, go eat pig slop. And he's actually looking at it and contemplating it. He's out there starving. He's out there exposed to the elements and the thugs. He's living with pigs, so you know he's not probably the healthiest or smells the prettiest. This guy isn't winning any awards. Despite all the shiny promises, all the slick words, and the grand plans, the world is broken and it's nothing to give. If you have nothing, you cannot give anything. And this man was at the bottom of his barrel, utterly bankrupt, wanting to eat something bad for him just to live another moment his way in this world. But here's the kicker. In one of the verses, verse 17, it says, but when he came to his senses. How far down do you have to get before you go, I get it? That moment of clarity when we have a choice. Do we keep doing what we're doing because we're stubborn, or we do something different and swallow our pride? He says, how many of my father's hired laborers have more than enough bread, but I am dying here from hunger? Oh, well done. How many of us had that? Yeah. I could go back to Daddy, right? I can go back to Daddy and eat bread instead of eating pig slop. What do? Well, he acknowledged it. And how many of us do we actually acknowledge that a dumb move? We need to start acknowledging that. Things I'm doing aren't working, so I need to do something different. And blessed are those that acknowledge that. If you read the rest of the parable, find out the son decides to go back to the father and would rather be his servant, a hired laborer, a slave to his father, just to get a little bit of bread. He'd rather be owned as a laborer just to make a wage, to get food, to get shelter, to not sit in filth, to not starve, to not be exposed. See, that's what being spiritually destitute is all about. And I'm going to say something that I know is not politically correct, but I'm going to say it. Being spiritually destitute means you would rather be a slave and live than die in this world. And that is not a popular saying. Because how many times have we heard it? I'd rather live free than die as a slave. But being spiritually destitute, being at that level of poverty means you're contemplating. When you're at the very bottom and you would rather be a slave than die. That's what spiritual destitution is. That's what spiritual bankruptcy is. Is going, I would rather be a slave than die. Be a slave to what? When this young man went back to his father, what happened to him? Did he get treated harshly? Did he get lashed? Did he get beat? No. I'm not talking slavery in terms of how we look at it. I want you to make that comparison of how far down are you willing to, that you're willing to be a slave and die. Well, that's spiritual destitution. You are so broke spiritually that you would rather be a slave to Christ than die in this world. What kind of a master is Christ? Is he harsh? Does he beat us? Does he give us nothing? Does he make us sleep on the floor? No, he doesn't. Being spiritually bankrupt is going, I would rather be a slave to Christ than die in this world and have agony. Because that's how you're going to die in this world. We have reached the bottom of the barrel. We're willing to sell ourselves off so we can survive. That's the point I'm trying to make with that. And you know what? I'd rather, like this young man. What did he do? He went crawling back. He didn't go back to his dad and go, I'm your son. You need to help me. He went crawling back. What did he say? I will tell my father I have sinned against you and against God. He became repentant. He begged for forgiveness. He came and knelt before his father. He was sorry. He was contrite. And just please, make me one of your servants. What did the father do? You're no slave. You're spiritually broke right now. Get up. Bring the fatted calf. Put him in rows. Bring the rings. We are spiritually broke. We are spiritually bankrupt. We need to recognize that we're living in torment and agony right now. And the only place that we're going to end up is hell. And we are so far down, so far broke, that we go, I would rather be a slave. Now, you know what? I'd rather go crawling to Christ on my belly and say, Lord, I know I was wrong. I acknowledge it. I am so broke. I'm looking at the filth of this world right now and contemplating it. Lord, can I be your slave if you'll save me? I believe in you. I know you're the only one. The world has turned its back on me. Lord, if you could give me a bit of bread, a cup of water, and just a wall I can put my back to at night, I will gladly shackle myself to the cross. Put the chains on me now. But like the Father, Jesus goes, you're no slave. I may be your master. I have bought and paid for you with my blood. Yes, Jesus is our master. We are his slaves. He owns us through his blood. But he goes, come inside. Does he give me a bunkhouse to sleep in? No. What does he say? I built you a mansion. Do I give you lashings? No, I give you love. Do I give you scraps from the table? No, you sit at a feast with me. Why wouldn't I want to be chained to this? I'm so spiritually broke. I am willing to sell myself as a slave to Christ. I have nothing. We have nothing. We do not make our own spiritual wealth. I go crawling to Christ so I can have something. I want to end with this. The words of Matthew 6. Do not store up yourselves treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We are promised all sorts of things by this world, by our leaders, by society, by culture. We take our eyes off of God because we go, oh, look, shiny object. We become so enamored with what the world has, but it has nothing. We are strange creatures when we're impressed by nothing. I got a big box of it right here. You see it? Are you impressed? This is what the world offers you. It can all be taken away. Everything that we have in this world can be taken away. How easy is it to have it taken away? Floods, disasters, thieves, death. You come in with nothing, you leave with nothing. What have you lost? Nothing. What have you gained? Nothing. The world doesn't want to help you, only itself. And there are so many distractions, and we are told to be distracted because that will help us know the world is broke. And if we store up our treasures in something broke, what happens? Go ahead and take all your treasures and put them in to a broken vault. What happens? Somebody can break in? Or how about it just collapses in on itself and covers it up and buries all that you have? Why do we invest in something that's broken? We store up in heaven. By following Christ, by coming to him and realizing, I have nothing. Nothing. Nothing in my pockets. I've got nothing. So I'm going to go to God who gives me everything. It's because of him I have wealth. And I'm going to take that wealth, and what am I going to do? Take wealth from him and put it in the world? No, I'm going to say, Lord, invest it for me. Put it in your bank. There's better returns. And as he keeps giving us that wealth, we keep giving it back to him to hold on to. We store it in heaven. We follow. We obey. We love. We keep our eyes on the cross. Blessed are the poor, the destitute, the spiritually bankrupt, that have lost everything, have nothing, and are found lying in the mud and filth because we see the glory of God and have come back with him. You have crawled back, sold yourselves to a benevolent, loving master who cancels your debts, most important, the debt of sin and death, that eternal separation from him. You have thrown away all that the world has regarded as wonderful. You have gathered new treasure. You have become humble, repentant, serving, faithful, obedient, and loving. These treasures are stored in an account that lasts forever and pays off greater. And you have invested in a future. The future that only God provides, and one that has no end.